Game Plus.
We need to get the clapper.
We do. We do need like the official like slate.
Yeah.
Make it a thing.
Definitely.
All right, man. So
All right. Good to see you.
Yeah, you too.
Summer 2023. We got some big gaming news.
I feel like this is like overwhelming this year.
It really is. Yeah.
We've had such a weird drought for the past few years. Like you get a few good ones here and there, but it just seems like this year is just like Christmas every day.
It's crazy. Yeah. I mean, we have Final Fantasy coming out. We've got the Nintendo Direct news, and then one of the big things you've been looking forward to is new Armored Core.
Yeah.
So, do you want to get into that? Let's talk about some.
Yeah, I think I like this. You'd brought up the idea of doing like a From Software sort of episode. And
well, I mean, I love From Software.
Yeah, so, as do we both.
Yeah. Especially Kingsfield.
Yes,
That's
Kingsfield.
a joke. Game's horrible.
Yeah, I'd never even heard of that until you showed me that today, and that is rough.
Yeah, that's a good word for it.
Yeah, we'll have to try to put in some gameplay footage of that because that is a mess. As you mentioned, Armored Core coming out this year.
Exciting.
Yeah, are you a fan of that series? Do you have a history of that series?
I do not. No, I missed Armored Core. I liked Mech Warriors growing up. All those were awesome. Virtual On was like my favorite arcade game, which unfortunately we don't have room for here, but on the wish list. But no, I know that you're a huge Armored Core guy, right?
I have a history with Armored Core. It's hard to say huge Armored Core fan because that's a series of games that I feel has never quite found its stride. I was a fan of those back in the day. I can't remember which entry I started in on first, but it might have been 2 or 3.
Okay.
And the very first one I played, I think it might have been this. I think it might have been 3 was my first entry. It's either the second or third, but watching that series, like I remember the first entry to have analog control was like a big deal.
Right.
That's a series that has always been like 2 steps behind where it should have been, and it's been very frustrating. And I think that this particular one I'm excited kind of about, but I'm also like a little apprehensive because I feel like the direction that they should take this series based off of some of the leaps they've made with, like Demon Souls and all of those games, most recently Elden Ring, I think is a direction they should have implemented a little bit into that series. Most mech games I feel suffer from a bit of a standardized mission after mission after mission kind of thing, and it gets a little boring. And Armored Core is no stranger to that curse.
Right. Yeah, which, I mean, it seems like that's the layout still is mission-based, though a lot of what I've been reading on the internet criticism is that it's now too Souls-like. Do you have...
Really?
Yeah, what I've been a lot of people are very angry about the hard lock-on, which, again, I'm not the Armored Core guy, but from my understanding, before you sort of had like a targeting reticle, and as long as something was in there, if you fired off, it went and hit them. Is that's accurate?
That's pretty accurate.
Okay.
Honestly, like any implementations or changes they're going to make to something like that, I feel like it's going to be beneficial. Honestly, I would prefer to have like some sort of lock-on reticle with a game like that for how frenetic the action can be.
Yeah.
But at the same time, the whole keeping it mission-based thing is really, to me, it's kind of a step back. Like I really feel like in order for like that series to evolve, it needs to do something different. And to me, I don't I'm worried that it's just going to be a shinier version of the kind of the same thing. And that's a series that I've always loved the idea of more than I actually love. Every Armored Core game that I have owned and played, it doesn't matter which one, like it gets, like, oh, hey, now we have analog controls. Like trying to play those games on a D-pad was terrible. Because similar to that one you showed me earlier, like it had that, it had the Kingsfield sort of setup, and that was just a nightmare.
It's horrible, yeah. I mean, I think it would feel more natural as a mech versus you're supposed to be a person who's handling like a,
that makes sense,
oil tanker.
Right. But, yeah.
I'm excited for it personally. I, again, haven't, it's one of those series that, one, it's hard to play going back. You would have to have, I mean, we have the original consoles here, obviously, but you would have to have the disc. There hasn't really been any re-releases or anything else like that.
It's not a very popular series.
It's not, no.
It's one of those series that, and that's why I'm finding, I'm excited for the people who are excited for it, because if you haven't had a chance to play an Armored Core game and this is your first sort of, hurrah into the mech game, then it's as good a place as any to start. I feel that mech games in general, it's one of those series of games that I want more than anything in the world, but so few get right. It's like, and Armored Core is like kind of one of the it's one of the big dogs in the fight, and it's still not great. It's never been great.
Right.
But the customization, like, it's all there. It's just like that boring mission-based combat is just.
Like, so you want like an open world?
I would have loved the idea of an open world, because I feel like having that and just being able to go through something like that would have just made it that much more interesting. And I still think to this day the best mech game that's ever been made is Titanfall 2. Titanfall 2 is as rock solid as it gets.
Yeah, story, movement.
Yeah, it's a great sci-fi story.
Yeah.
The combat's great. It's just a really tight game, and I just feel like Armored Core never quite hit its stride, and I hope I'm wrong, and I hope this is like the first one that really does. But it's weird because it's not a series I don't like. It's like a series I've played all of them, and I just want them to be more than what they've ever been. It's very frustrating.
Oh, I can definitely see that. I mean, I'm excited for it as someone who's never been into Armored Core, but does like the whole giant mech, cyberpunk sort of super capitalist mercenary fantasy sort of thing. I think it looks really cool. I've seen the gameplay footage. Everything looks really awesome to me. But again, I haven't played the other, 5 main plus how many other side ones.
Yeah, there's a bunch.
It isn't old to me yet because I haven't, gotten into it.
Yeah, and I feel like this is going to be a good entry point. Like that's why I say I'm like excited for anyone who this is your first Armored Core game.
Right.
Then I feel like it's probably going to be like the penultimate version of Armored Core for you to step into, and you're not going to have like all those sour experiences with the other ones in the past. But it's a series I've put a lot of time into. And it was just never quite what I wanted it to be, and now I'm worried that it's still not going to be, but only because it's going to be more of the same with like a better coat of, polish on it. And like, I hope I'm wrong. And I hope there's a lot more meat on that bone than I think there's going to be.
Right.
But I also really feel like I kind of know what it's going to be. So like, again, if you're just getting into this, cool. I hope you love it. And I hope I'm wrong. I really do. And I hope I love it. Because nothing would make me happier than to have a mech game that's awesome for once. It's such a weird genre.
It is. It's very, very niche.
Yeah.
Which is strange because it seems like it's something that's pretty popular.
Yeah. Like
most people, if you talk to them, at least, guys our age and our generation gaps, like giant robots, like shooting missiles. Everyone's like, yep, I'm down. Like Transformers, Mech Warrior.
Yeah.
Everything basically. We're all down with it, but yeah.
What like
games?
What have you played for a mech game that's like really enjoyable for you? If we're gonna like sidetrack, but not really for a little bit.
I mean, I really liked Mech Warrior growing up.
The PC?
Yeah, the PC. Yeah. I played, Mech Warrior. I think 4 was the last one I played, so I kind of fell off for a while. But yeah, I don't know, just always like that whole like just build, customize, and then go and blow stuff up. So I feel like to me it's not stale enough that I think I'll love Armored Core 6. Like,
Yeah.
I'm basically just like cleaning like my gaming plate after Zelda and waiting until that to get into anything big.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, I do want to play Final Fantasy, but I feel like that'll always be there personally.
Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah,
Plus 15 was 15.
Oh, you don't want to go wedding dress shopping? You don't want that in your Final Fantasy
Yeah,
game?
you don't want to roll around with the boys for 60 hours going fishing.
What a weird game.
That was a very strange game. Yeah. The movie that came with it though,
Was it good?
it was dope.
Huh.
Yeah. I was super pumped for 15. I bought like the collector's steel box and all that. Put in that movie, sat there, watched it. I was like, this is like the coolest thing ever. And I played the game. I was like, who is this guy? Like, give me the king. He was cool. Like this Prince Noctis guy is just not doing it for me.
I hope the new one's going to be good. Like it's supposedly more action oriented, but
oh yeah, 100%.
I'm okay with that, honestly. Like
yeah,
the way that's been shifting, and if you give me a decent hack and slash that's got a good story, I'm more than okay with that.
Yeah, I feel like Final Fantasy has definitely moved away from the turn-based for so long that it's not even part of like the DNA at this point.
Yeah, no, 100%.
But yeah, no, I'm excited for that. But again, I'll put it on the back burner, and if it's good and I wait, then great. If it's mediocre and I wait, then at least like I can temper my expectations. But yeah, we didn't hear about Elden Ring DLC, which is something that people were sort of talking about.
Oh, that's right. You were a big Elden Ring fan, right?
I love all of the the Souls like, I don't know what you call the genre anymore, but Sekiro, everything. Yeah. But yeah, no word on that yet. But were you?
So, I stepped into that with Demon Souls for the PS3. That was like my first one, and I loved that one so much. The atmosphere in that, like just the different classes. I felt like it really captured like a minimalist style of gameplay that like harkened back to like the 90s almost.
Oh yeah.
It reminded me in a lot of ways like the very first Dragon Age, where it was just so like stripped down, but at its heart it was like such a good RPG and had so much atmosphere and mood.
Yep.
And then I didn't really like the Dark Souls series.
Really?
Yeah, I couldn't really get into them. It just didn't capture like the same vibe for me. And then by the time Elden Ring came out, I did love Bloodborne. I like Bloodborne, not nearly as much as you with your shirt. But
yeah, Bloodborne, is just an absolutely incredible game.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I love Dark Souls, though I feel like Dark Souls 1 is basically a remake of Demon Souls in a lot of ways. There's a lot of parallels to it. And I also have like the worst, most unpopular opinion ever about Dark Souls, that Dark Souls 2 is the best Dark Souls.
Why is that an unpopular opinion?
Oh, just take out your phone and Google it. People
really
hate Dark Souls 2.
Really?
Absolutely hate it, and I don't understand why.
Which one is like the most beloved of the bunch?
It's kind of depends on where you started, I guess. So if you're our age or, around that, if you played Demon Souls or Dark Souls on Xbox 360 or PS3, that would be your favorite one. And if you're, Generation Z or whatever, they all say Dark Souls 3, which I think is a god-awful game. Interesting.
I couldn't... I've played each of them, and I liked each iteration less, honestly. And that's funny because like I find it odd that like so few people even know about Demon Souls. I feel like Demon Souls is like the one that's like the least known about.
Yeah.
But it's also like, to me, it's like still my favorite. I think it's so polished and so fun a game, and it was like miserable, but it was still kind of accessible, I think.
Yep.
And then just like I just kind of lost my love for the series as it went on, because I don't feel like it did anything different really. The more it went on, I just felt like it was more of the same. And sometimes I'm okay with that.
Right.
But with a game like that where it's like not really narratively driven, it's just kind of, you're just going to throw me into space. I got to survive. I got to get to point A to point B, and something's going to try. It's like, I need a little bit more than that, than like a refresh of like a level or
Mhm.
like a different scenario, like a different like set piece, I guess, to get
Yeah.
me into it, and it just didn't capture it for me.
That's interesting though, because like I agree, it's not a narratively driven series, except for maybe Sekiro or Bloodborne, obviously. But let's just put those aside and just
Sure.
talk about Souls. I do think though that the lore in all of those games is incredibly like detailed and complex. But
Yeah, I'll agree with you 100%.
you have to go digging for it.
Yeah.
It's not. That's one of the things that I loved about 1 and 2 is that there was all this extra information and whatnot that you could dig into, and then 3 was kind of like, oh yeah, this is just Dark Souls 1 again, which is really what kind of turned me off of it.
So 3 was kind of like a lazy rehash.
Yeah, other than the DLCs are great for 3, but yeah, it's literally if you played Dark Souls 1, that's the plot of Dark Souls 3.
Huh.
I mean, if you squint a little bit, it's a little different, but yeah, more or less.
That stinks.
Yeah. But, I mean, we can both agree Bloodborne is absolutely fantastic video game.
Bloodborne got me like I had like the same vibes as I did with Demon's Souls with Bloodborne. Like Bloodborne like made me want to explore, and like I felt that sense of accomplishment when I did something.
Yep.
And I liked how the more it draws you in, like and the weirder it gets. That game was really, really atmospheric, and it was beautiful. Like you climb on the rooftops, and there's like this gorgeous like orange sunset in the background. The game's gorgeous. Like that, the engine they use is. And again, I think this is why I liken it to like Dragon Age. Like the very first Dragon Age for me, it's not a pretty game.
No.
But like there's like a charm to it. Like it utilizes what it has and it creates this atmosphere. And I think Bloodborne does that as well. Bloodborne's a much prettier game, don't get me wrong, but it also has like there's like a limitation there, and they really utilize what they have to like this stunning effect that like really has like this atmosphere and like this weight to it. And
definitely.
I love the world. It just like sucks you right into the world, and like it's not a fun place to be.
No,
like the world it's a pretty miserable place.
Yeah. Plus, they turn like right on its ear about what 40% through the game. You start off, you're like, oh, I'm fighting these big werewolves and whatnot, and then like, oh yeah, we're going like straight Lovecraft. Like, straight off the deep end, like as soon as you get to the university. It's like, this is going to get weird.
Yeah.
And it's awesome the entire time.
This is, this is funny too, because like I have never beaten any one of those games.
Okay.
So even with Demon's Souls, like I have not beaten a single Souls game yet, or I haven't beaten Bloodborne yet.
Yeah.
Like it's one of those things that I always get to a point where I just get so annoyed that I just have to stop, and then I just never come back to it because by the time I come back, I'm super rusty, and I'm like, You can't stop and go back with those games. I remember I was playing New Game Plus on Sekiro, and I got towards the end of it and took a break. And I came back, and I was like, I should just restart, and I didn't feel like doing that, so it's been sitting on the shelf since. But is that one any good?
Yes.
Okay.
It's very different though. It's almost more of a rhythm game than
really.
Yeah.
What?
Yep. So if you watch, and this is funny because Armored Core 6 has a similar mechanic for, it's called like this, well in Sekiro it's called the stagger mechanic. So every time that you parry, they have a little bar above their life bar that fills. And if it fills all the way, they stagger, and then you can get another hit. So a lot of the game is just tapping R1 as you're getting hit, so that you can then do an attack.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, so you're not like rolling around or, in Bloodborne you shoot and then do the critical attack. It's all that parry, 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 and then hit them once they stagger.
Oh, weird.
That's the optimal way of combat in that game, yeah.
And that's like, but it's pretty much like a Souls game, but like Japanese instead? Yeah,
more or less. I mean, you don't have the weapon choice that you have in most of the other Souls games, so there's not as much replay value. It is more narratively driven. There's actual like lengthy cutscenes, at least for
which, as we know, you love cutscenes.
Oh, I hate cutscenes. Yeah, it was just at the cusp before I was going to turn it off. They were like, all right, cutscene over. And I'm like, okay, I'm still with you.
You're still with it?
Yeah. Yeah, it's very different from everything else they've done, but I think in a good way. Like I don't know if I'd play a Sekiro 2, though. I feel like everything's been tread that could be tread in that.
Not that it's the same game by any stretch of the imagination, but oh god, what's the one that I'm thinking of? That Japanese open world game that just sort of took my life and
Tsushima?
So Ghost of Tsushima.
Yep.
Yeah, that game, I know they're not the same game by any stretch of the imagination, but that
No.
game was like, I don't think there should ever be another game that tries to even do what that game did.
No.
They couldn't even make a sequel to that because it would be,
No.
yeah.
Yeah.
That game was perfect. It's
Maybe
weird.
in VR or something, and 10 years when you can actually like have a full-on katana fight, that would be cool.
That would be gnarly.
No, yeah, they knocked it out of the park. That was definitely one that sort of came out of left field.
Yeah, that's a strange game. I know I don't want to get too far off track from Software, but just even thinking about that game, it's like I had no real expectations for it, and then when I dove into it, I was like, there's so few games that I would consider perfect, and that game I think is perfect. I have yet to play an open world game where like I did every single thing.
Yep.
And like that game made me want to do every single thing. Like,
Yeah.
I got every haiku. I sat in every like hot spring. Like I did
Yeah.
everything. That game, if you've never played Ghost of Tsushima, seek it out. Play it. It is literal perfection as far as the game is concerned.
100%. Yeah, play it. Yeah, I've always been a huge Kurosawa fan growing up and everything. Like Seven Samurai was one of my favorite movies of all time. Yojimbo is my favorite movie of all time. And just, yeah, my buddy told me about it randomly like a week before it came out because I was just basically unplugged from that sector of the internet or whatever. Just hadn't heard of it. And it came out and I was like, oh my God. Yeah, I just sat there and played it 8 hours a day. Like,
yeah, same.
As much as I could. Like, just losing sleep. Like, great game though. But yeah, I mean, Sekiro is similar, but not. The combat's obviously going to be much more difficult, but it is like, it's a cool little Eastern sort of, samurai escape, but you're more of a ninja samurai kind of guy.
All right. So it's got more of a, oh no, this is my brain just not working. What was that old ninja game for like the PlayStation 1?
Shinobi?
No. Tenchu.
Stealth Assassins.
Stealth Assassins. Yeah, that game was.
Yeah, it was more similar to that, I would say. Yeah, it's definitely like it's that with a hook shot.
Tenchu had a hook shot too. I think once like the second one rolled around, you got a hook shot, but those games were so unplayable due to like the limitations of the PlayStation. Those games were just a nightmare to try to play.
Right.
But back in the day, it was like revolutionary.
That's all you had. Yeah, you didn't know any better.
Yeah.
The Kingsfields of history.
So speaking of Kingsfield, like what else from Software? I know they've done so much, but like is there anything else that like aside from the popular stuff that we're not really touching on here?
I mean, most people would know them from Souls and then Armored Core. Kingsfield was one of their first ones, and then they had a 360 game called Ninja Blade. Absolute garbage.
Really?
Oh yeah, like it makes Kingsfield look good. Like it's just like if you can think of like the worst like Ninja Gaiden ripoff that you could possibly like dream up in a fever dream, that's Ninja Blade. Yeah,
that's fair.
Yeah, I would recommend like just YouTubing some footage just so you can get a feel of it. But the Moonlight Greatsword is in it, which is staple of the developers. But,
it's cool, a little Easter egg to their own stuff.
Nice little Easter egg.
That's fun.
But yeah, no, I think that's. I mean, hopefully someone corrects us if we're wrong, but I think that's sort of their, their whole wheelhouse.
So is there like what would you say is like your favorite game of theirs so far? Like the one that's given you like the most replayability and just you've lost your life in?
I've probably spent the most time in Dark Souls 2.
Yeah.
But I mean, I've spent a lot of time in all 3 of the Souls games plus Bloodborne. Those, I mean, thousands of hours just lost in those games. Just, I don't know. The PvP, just replayability, the whole New Game Plus thing, doing different weapons, different builds, like, plus, I don't know. I always like the theory behind it, the lore of all the games. It's not in your face like, oh, this guy is this guy is this. You sort of have to figure it out or talk to people. And I really dig that sort of like narrative style of a video game. Because I feel like that's something that you can't get in a lot of different mediums. Like that's something where it's okay, like you can either just swing your sword and kill the big guys, or you can, look around and be like, oh, this guy is actually like a good guy, and it's kind of tragic that I'm killing him. Like, I think that's a really cool way of doing things, and like we sort of talked about, last time with the whole cutscenes and everything else. Like, I feel like that's how I'd like to see gaming move. I want storytelling through gameplay.
Yeah.
Or,
Sense.
having like player agency build the story versus just here it is. Like, if you just throw it out in front of me, I don't care. Like, that's just how I am.
Yeah. I think as far as like narratives go and stuff, like I do like that like minimalist style storytelling as well. I like it. I like it when a game makes you work for it.
Definitely.
I have a hard time with games that just sort of throw a narrative at you, especially if it's like kind of threadbare, but it's
or
like,
cliched.
Yeah, like
it's like I've heard this before.
Yeah, I think a series that's really guilty of that a lot right now is Fire Emblem. If I'm being honest, like I picked up the newest one for the Switch, Engage, and I played it for like an hour, and I was like, cool. They brought the combat back to a little bit more of the basics, because the three houses one, I hated that. I felt like I was like walking around like Hogwarts, and like I was like.
You don't like Harry Potter?
I mean, I don't mind Harry Potter, but like, I don't want to play that in a tactics RPG. Like,
it's a very strange.
Yeah, I don't want to have to like make friends and date people and like do chores in a school. Like, it's just like, what are we doing? Like, just keep it simple. And I feel like that's like one of those games that's kind of guilty of that. Like, it's gotten generic, but the characters like become like are cliches that are trying to like push you through a narrative, and that's something I'm seeing a lot of.
Oh yeah.
So
it's a hard balance to strike, because I don't think they really know what's going to be, because that may be a very popular trope in Japan. The whole like
100%.
You see that in almost everything. The whole school for vampires or school for I don't even know, like literally anything.
No,
you could probably throw two words together and there would be a school for it in like some anime or manga or something.
100% guarantee, right?
But over here, like that's not really something that we're interested in past, high school age. So yeah, I don't like the whole thing either. I didn't play Hogwarts Legacy. Like,
same.
It's not super interesting to me, but yeah, I mean, Fire Emblem, I feel like if they just kept it to the basics, and then I don't know, it's a hard balancing act.
Are you excited for the Game Boy Advance re-release?
Yeah, that should be really good. I hope that they do it well, because sometimes the Switch with Game Boy games doesn't look very good.
I thought Metroid Fusion looked pretty good. I played through Metroid Fusion, and then oddly enough, I got to the end of it, and I don't remember if I beat it or not. Just I remember like that end boss fight. Something about the Switch Pro controller was just like it was a little hard to maneuver. Like the D-pad was like too good, and then like the analog was just like way too good. Right. So it was like you were like left with like this. It just never quite felt right, if that makes any sense.
No.
I remember just getting to the end and like you're so powerful with like the screw attack and stuff. It just became like kind of hard to control, and it's so weird to say that like you'd think that some games benefit more from like a modern control advance, where some like you'd rather get that thing that like it hurts your hands because it like just makes more sense.
Right.
And I felt like that was a game that was kind of like that.
Or just limited, input control, basically. You want either 4 or 8 and not, 360 control of the character. But, I mean, the reason I say that is because I recently bought the Castlevania GBA collection for the Switch. And I don't know, something about the way that they did it on that screen it just made me want to immediately just go grab an SP or like a DS Lite or something and like play it on that instead.
It's funny you mentioned that because I have those as well, and I really like them. And to me, it feels exactly like it did on the handheld. Yeah, because like even back then, I feel like the first one, especially the very first Castlevania game, very first Castlevania Advance game was super janky. Like that game was very weird in the way it moved. Like you had like the double tap forward to run, and then like you would jump and it would like kind of like glide you in a way. It was like a really weird motion,
right?
That never quite felt right even then, and I still feel that today. Like it feels the same to me there. But I feel like all the other Castlevania games they feel great. I don't have any problems with them. Yeah,
I don't know what it is. I tried Harmony of Dissonance, and I couldn't get into it. And I tried, what was it Aria of Sorrow?
Aria of Sorrow, yep.
I tried that one too, and it was just like, I don't know. Maybe I'm just like stuck back in time. I need it on a screen that's like that big, but
some games like that I feel like are better played as like a handheld. And I haven't really touched those on my TV. Anytime I do play them, it is handheld because you put them on the TV and it's just like, it doesn't look that great blown up. But you play it handheld and it's still, still looks pretty decent.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know, man. Like there's so much coming out, and the way we do this show, it's like we're gonna try to be as on point and topical as we can in the amount of time we do these.
Right.
But yeah, this is a crazy year.
It really is. There's way too much stuff. It feels like the next couple months are probably what 2 years of major releases.
Dude, it's nuts.
Yeah.
It's nuts. Like we should be doing a Final Fantasy episode right now.
Right.
This should be Final Fantasy, but the way we're going to release these, like Final Fantasy comes out tomorrow.
Yeah.
So you guys aren't going to get to see it, but we could do like a whole Final Fantasy thing. Like especially now that I'm like going through my Play Asia order, I got like the physical edition of the Pixel remasters.
Yep.
And I'm like so happy about that, and like I've been tearing through those, and like I don't know, like I had written off Final Fantasy like a decade ago, and just going through and playing them again, I'm just like,
well, you didn't like Remake?
I didn't even bother with that. Yeah. Did you play that?
I started it. I didn't.
I've heard it was not great.
Yeah, I don't like. It's just one of those things where it's like, I feel like if it was a new story or something, I could get into it,
Yeah.
But it's almost like, all right, the combat's okay, but it's not like super engaging. Like, oh, I want one more battle or something like that, and you already know where the narrative is going. Plus, the way they released it, it's half a game anyway.
Yeah, and then it'll be done like 20 years from now anyway.
Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, why am I going to play through half of a game that I've already played through, and I don't even have like the nostalgic connection of like, this is the combat. Like, oh, I remember, this overpowered materia or going and getting at this. It's just like they changed enough of the wrong stuff to like if they just redid, Final Fantasy VII and just upgraded the graphics, I would have played through it.
Yeah, that would have been a better way to do it, just like a straight remaster.
Yeah.
Like the Pixel remasters are absolutely stunning. Like they've everything got like a 16-bit coat of paint.
Yep.
And the first 3 Final Fantasies were on the Nintendo, so being able to play those and they look better and they're actually like playable. They brought things to light that you wouldn't be able to do before. Like you go into a shop and you actually know what you're buying is going to do to benefit your character. Like all these little quality of life things, it just makes sense. It just makes them that much more fun to play, and I think that 7 could easily have benefited from just like a lot of what developers are doing. Like look at Resident Evil 4 and all the Resident Evil remakes. Like just sometimes all something needs is like a fresh control scheme and a new coat of paint.
Yeah. So. Or if they were going to do what they did with the remake, they should have done an older one, like 4 or 6 or something.
Yeah.
Where our generation was familiar with it, or yours and mine, but the next generation, they probably haven't played anything before 7. So why not introduce them to that and have like, oh, here's the new combat, but you're Edgar with a chainsaw. Like I feel like that would be cooler.
That would be cooler.
Yeah, but I don't know. Square Enix somehow still prints money even with horrible business decisions constantly.
Yeah,
so.
They do. They are kind of a shadow of the company they used to be. Like when we were coming up, like it felt like all they were doing was cranking out excellence, and they were.
Right.
But as far as like the Final Fantasy series, I know we have to touch on. I want to touch on Final Fantasy a little bit because it's coming out tomorrow, but no one else knows that.
Well, they know now.
They know now. But yeah, like what is your favorite in that entire run of games?
Like all the way up?
All the way up, man. Any Final Fantasy game, take your pick.
That's hard to say.
Right?
It really is hard to say because like I love the job system in 5. I think that was probably the first time I saw a game do something like that. And I thought it was the coolest thing ever. Like that's one of the things I love about like Fire Emblem Awakening. Just going through and grinding up the different jobs, getting different abilities.
Yeah.
In Final Fantasy V, you had that making your perfect party, 4 blue mages or like, stuff like that. So that's a big one. 6, obviously, narratively, I think is the best one. I feel like 6 still hasn't been surpassed as a story game since then. I really like 14, which is the online one, but it's very single player friendly, so you can play it as like a single player game. And they do a lot of callbacks to everything else in the series, which is cool. Like Kefka is a fight in 14.
That's cool.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, and he turns into God Kefka in the fight, which is really cool.
That is very cool.
Yeah. But yeah, I would say that is like the top. I mean, 7 is good. I don't want, people to think like I don't like 7. It was a great game. 8 wasn't. And then I feel like past 8, they're all sort of, okay.
Yeah, that was kind of the downhill. I would agree with that. I'm kind of at a toss up myself between probably like sort of like a 3-way tie, honestly. Like I'm somewhere between Final Fantasy 4, Final Fantasy 6, and Final Fantasy Tactics. I think Tactics might be my favorite out of all of them.
Tactics is great. Yeah.
But there's it's weird because I just love all 3 of those for different reasons. Like 4, I think is my favorite narrative.
Okay.
Like I like the idea of like you start off as like you're like a death knight essentially, and you go in and you're burning a town to the ground, and you become like a holy paladin after the fact, and like your partner becomes like the villain after a while. And I thought that was just a great way to start a game.
Kane?
Yeah. He's just becomes like a dick, and you have to like get out. You have to like he becomes the bad guy, and you have like a change of conscience. It's awesome. And then 6 for that, just like amazing music, and the 6 is just beautiful.
Yeah.
But Tactics had the story, the combat in that is amazing. Like the system in that was just. Tactics is so good, and it's such an unsung hero of that like whole series. I think.
Oh, it definitely is. I mean, honestly, when you just asked me that question, I was thinking like mainline Final Fantasy, and I didn't even think of Tactics. But yeah, Tactics was a great game. I always feel like if you do a tactical RPG right, it's going to suck in like certain types of people, and I think you and I are both.
Oh yeah.
Those types of people. Like we'll grind out battle after battle, like getting that next skill up. That next job unlock, class unlock, whatever it is. Like, yeah, huge fan of tactical RPGs. But
that's a whole episode. We could do a whole episode on tactical RPGs.
We really could. We should. Yeah.
We should. There's so much we could do.
Oh yeah.
What do you guys want to see? Like, let us know. Like, if there's something you want us to cover, chances are we've played it.
Yeah, that's true. We can just live stream Shining Force 2 for the next episode. Yeah,
just forever.
just sit there. Yeah,
definitely. Until someone passes out.
Yeah.
Yeah. I guess this is a pretty solid place to end.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you want to touch on with From Software there?
From Software. I mean, can we get like a re-release of Bloodborne 60 FPS? That'd be nice, right?
Yeah, I'd take that with a fresh coat of paint.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. No, I mean, I feel like we didn't really touch too much on the Nintendo Direct stuff, but
well, let's get into it. What do you want to cover on the Nintendo Direct that you're excited about?
I mean, I feel like we have to mention that Super Mario RPG is getting a re-release.
Yeah.
And that you're not excited at all about that.
I'm just indifferent a little bit.
You're indifferent to Super Mario. Think about that. Like, there's a whole new generation now that's going to be able to appreciate like one of the gems of gaming history.
Yeah, and that's a SquareSoft game, and you and I were talking about this in the shop a little earlier, but obviously you guys didn't hear that. But one of my biggest things with any of the Mario RPG games, whether it's Mario and Luigi Superstars or like any of them, honestly, is I think they just overstay their welcome. They're always super fun. They have super engaging combat, but the Mushroom Kingdom's not the place for a 40-hour narrative. I don't need a 40-hour camp. Like, that's just too much, especially when it's just Bowser being a silly goose and trying to kidnap someone again. It's like,
right.
It's like, all right, like it's just too silly, and it doesn't have any gravitas, and it's like it tries too hard to be. Actually, it doesn't even try too hard to be. It just keeps going, and like I haven't been able to finish one because I just, even back then, even when that game was new, Mario RPG, and it was the biggest thing, I was like, oh, this is amazing.
Yep.
It's just after a while, I can only spend so much time, collecting toadstools before it just like loses its luster for
Right.
me.
Yeah, there's no gravity to the whole plot line. I can see that. Yeah.
And there's just too much of it. Like
Yeah.
I don't need a 40, 50 hour Mario game. I remember Mario, what was it? Mario and Luigi, like All Stars or Superstars, whatever, the Game Boy Advance one, or 3DS one, or whatever system it was on. I do remember, I think I got around like 32 hours into that. I remember like looking at the clock being like, all right, come on. It's like, it's cool. I just got like a ball of Luigi's that I can like kick down into a group of enemies, which is super fun because you have to time it right. It was like, cool, but how many Goombas do I have to slay before? Like, what's gonna happen? What's the end game here? I'm gonna get the Power Star,
right?
Like, come on. It's like this.
The princess in another castle again.
Yeah, this doesn't need to be 40 hours.
No,
like,
it's not Tolstoy.
No, it's not. But that being said, I think they're very enjoyable. And like you said, like for a generation of people who've never played it before, like I'll probably revisit it. I'll give it another shot.
Yeah, 5 or 10 hours.
Yeah, yeah. See if I can speed run it or something.
That would be cool.
Yeah.
I just couldn't let an episode go by without one of your hot takes.
Oh, that's fair.
We needed the
We do need a hot
audience
take. I got hot takes.
You do.
I don't know. I've played a lot of video games, and I think that's just part of the problem.
Yeah.
That's another thing we talk about all the time.
Yep.
Is just, you can only play the same thing so many times before it gets a little stale, and that's why I'm personally so fired up about VR. And that's a whole episode, I think. That's something I want to get the PSVR 2 headset on you, and I want to give you a couple hours to mess with it. And I would just love to see like what your perspective is on that, because that to me right now, as far as gaming is a lifestyle, whatever you want to call it, like a hobby, a lifestyle, whatever, like whatever you look at it, is like, to me, that is the next big thing and the only thing that really has me excited about gaming in general, because I feel like there's nothing new under the sun anymore with gaming. I feel like we've kind of seen it all. Everything is going to be kind of a rehab. Like, what can we take from this that we mix into this and then make this that someone else does the same thing over and over again and grind it to the ground?
Right. And
that does sound jaded.
It sounds extremely jaded.
But it's not. I don't feel like it's untrue.
I feel like it's like there's merit there, but I do feel like there are people in the gaming space who are taking things and doing them in interesting ways that makes them new, and I feel like that could be something that we talk about at length at some point, that there are people who are taking stuff that's old and dry and just twisting it a little bit. I mean, you recently played a game on the Switch where you saw that, so maybe we can talk a little bit of that next time.
Which one are we talking about here?
The roguelike you just played.
Oh, Star Renegades.
Renegades.
I mentioned that in the last episode
exactly,
too. Yeah, that game's But that's the thing, is like, it doesn't take a lot for me to flip the script on that. Like, I just feel like gaming as a whole is kind of like in this weird generic spot.
Oh yeah.
But that doesn't mean that it's not still good. It just, for me, it's like Horizon is a great example. That's a game that everyone was losing their mind about and talking about how great it is.
No.
I got like 10 hours into that game, and I was like, this feels like every open world game I've ever played.
Yeah.
But with robot dinosaurs.
I felt the same way about her. I probably got 3 hours into it and turned it off.
I tried playing it again. I was like, maybe I just wasn't in the mood for it. Maybe
you gave Horizon a second.
I did.
Wow.
Because sometimes, as we've talked about, is like, sometimes I feel that I am unfair to a game just because I don't feel like playing it at that moment.
Right.
Try to revisit it. No, I just don't care. Just don't care.
Yeah.
And sometimes that happens.
And it happened twice.
It happened twice. So yeah. But I think we're both really excited about a lot of stuff coming up right now.
Oh, 100%. Yeah. Even if we're, jaded and we've seen it all, hopefully we're surprised with what comes next.
Yes. And that's part of why I like talking to you so much, because you have played just as many games as I have. You've spent so much of your life dedicated to this passion and this hobby. Like, you own a video game store that we are in right now.
Yeah.
And just like being able to still get excited and have these shared experiences and conversations about this thing that you love so much, to me is great.
Yeah.
Because there's so few people that you can really get into it with and talk about, because like it's such a large amount of your life that you've dedicated to it.
Oh yeah.
Which is both amazing and sad.
Right. Yeah, it really is. I mean, we talk about the scoreboard and everything. Like, I feel like gaming's probably beating sleep at this point. Like,
yeah, that's something.
That's scary to think about.
It is.
But you also have to play Tears of the Kingdom, because I feel like of those, like, feelings like, oh, this is like a new, like, crazy, like, amazing game, I feel like the most recent one to me obviously was Tears of the Kingdom.
Yeah.
Like, I probably sunk over, I mean, the Switch tells you, but it's over 160 hours at this point that I've spent in that game.
That is crazy.
And I'm at the point where, like, I can find Koroks, like, and I still play it like every couple days just because, like, I think it's that good of a game.
I'm looking forward to diving into it. And I hope I have your enthusiasm.
I do
once
too.
I do.
Yeah.
There's just so much right now, because I've talked to you about it, but I've recently started physically collecting again.
Mm-hmm.
Since working for you guys, it's made me like embrace like I miss this, and I've decided to collect on the Switch, because I feel that the Switch has such a good catalog of present and past.
Yeah,
and it's like it's such a good way to get like a catalog of games that I'm gonna have forever, and that'll be on this system that's like just powerful enough to give me like a modern game that I like.
Yep.
And be able to play games from like 30 years ago, and then in indie games, and finding those gems on a physical cartridge is what I'm after now. I'm done trying to get digital games. I'm trying to get physical stuff, and I've collected my library of digital stuff into physical at this point. I'm kind of done right now.
Nice.
But like, it's been really fun doing that, and like, I don't know, just being here with you guys is like really kind of fired me up to want to collect again.
You found Hyperlight Drifter on physical? I
have Hyperlight Drifter on PlayStation 4. I have that on my Xbox. I do need to get. I want to get a copy of that for the Switch. I feel like
it's a Switch game. It's one of those games, like, I did the same thing with Hollow Knight. I got Hollow Knight for free from PS Plus, and I was like, I want to play this on my Switch. And I bought it on the Switch.
Yeah, I recently picked that up again because, like, you kind of were like, well, you don't like that? What's the matter with you? I was like, all right, fair. Give it another shot. So I guess to wrap up, like, give me like a handful of things that you're like coming out like this year that you're like super fired up about.
I mean, Zelda was obviously huge. Right now, I'm super excited about Armored Core 6. Like, I don't know why. Like, it's not a series I've ever been into, but seeing that gameplay footage, just like, I don't know, it awakened that like dormant, like, all right, let's get in a giant mech and fuck shit. Oh,
yeah. I mean, you can,
we're far enough in that I'm dropping. That's my one F-bomb for the podcast. I got super excited right there. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Like, I want to see things explode. But that is huge. Final Fantasy is obviously huge. I can't really think of too much else. I mean, I will play Fire Emblem again on the Switch, but
Engage.
No.
Oh, the advanced one, Game Boy Advance. Yeah.
Yeah. So, but that's sort of like retreading old ground. But
yeah.
What about you?
Most recently, like, I'm looking forward to the Front Mission remake.
Okay.
Front Mission the first.
Yeah.
That should be coming out like next week. I pre-ordered that. I'm excited to get that. And I'm really excited for the new Spider-Man game.
Okay.
All of those have been amazing. Those Spider-Man games are tremendous. And the new one, they're doing the Venom thing finally. And so I watched the gameplay footage of that. There's like a 12-minute trailer of that, and just like I am amazed at how they're pushing that genre that has been done to death.
Mm-hmm.
Like Arkham pushed it into the ground, and Spider-Man revitalized it, and just keeps managing to make it fresh instead of rehashing. So I'm looking forward to that a lot. And Blasphemous 2 is supposed to be coming out soon.
Is it?
And
it's another one I'm gonna have to give a retry.
That is a The fact that that didn't resonate with you,
It literally checks every single box that I could think of for like a good game, like side-scrolling, hard, Souls-like, this Spanish Catholic, lore behind it seems
Metroidvania.
really cool. Yeah, and just playing it, I was like, I don't like the gameplay, but I'll give it a try.
I think if you settle into that one, that's not like. I think the thing about that game that's deceptive is that you feel like you should just be able to pick it up and play it.
Exactly. Yeah.
That game is not accessible. Like, it is accessible in the fact that it controls well and it does all the things you need it to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you go into that game thinking you're going to be playing like a Metroidvania style like action game,
Right.
Oh no, that game has other things in store for you. Like, yeah, that game is a miserable slog, which you should love.
I unfortunately do. Yeah, I do. So I will give it a try. Maybe sometime after this whole tidal wave of great gaming that's coming out. And I know we're going to turn off these cameras and think of something else that we didn't bring up that we 100% should have, which always happens. So.
Yeah. So I guess, is that it for us today?
I think that's it. Yeah.
All right. So if there's anything you guys would like us to touch on, let us know in the comments. Do all the things, like, subscribe, all that stuff. I like feedback. I like having comments, and I like talking to people. So, fire away, and we'll chat at you.
I don't like talking to people in the comments, so just talk to John, and it'll be like that.
I'll text you, and then I'll let you be like, hey,
screenshot me the comments, the good ones.
Yeah,
I don't want to see the bad ones.
No, that's fair. There's always bad ones.
They're all bad.
Yeah, I think that'll do it. But
all right.
Yeah, thanks guys for checking this out.
Thanks a lot. Have a good one.
See you in the next one.
Later.